How navigation systems and poor city planning are both leading to horrific traffic nightmares.
Some of which have a lot of scientific research and analysis behind them of ways to reduce traffic and simplify intersections and reduce the danger in intersections, since the vast majority of traffic accidents do occur in intersections. So if we can make intersections safer, even if the design may be counterintuitive to some before they get used to it, it can save many lives and save us all a lot of time and convenience.
So I have some experience with this in that a few years ago, I had a friend who lives here locally in South Florida who became the victim of intended but poorly planned traffic management. And he reached out for help, and I was one of several people that was working with him. I met with the city, met with city engineers, and spoke about what the situation was and did a lot of research. This next clip is actually the entire news story, one of the stories, I think a few of them, about this when I was there with him and we were, so you'll see me in the, if you look at the clip closely, you'll see me in the background walking around with the elected official and being there. But I'm going to give you the take and what we learned as to why this traffic was as bad as it was. It's quite fascinating because with more and more people on the roads and more people moving to places like Florida, the problem of traffic is only getting worse. So let's listen in to this story that unfortunately my friend Neil had to endure for years because of poor planning.
Brandon Beyer reports residents are begging the city to stop the traffic.
The city of Hollywood is known for its tranquil, family-friendly neighborhoods. But on 13th Avenue, the quiet is mixed with chaos.
Since 2008, we've had well over 100 car accidents within about 200 feet of this home.
10 years ago, the city of Hollywood blocked through traffic on neighborhood streets, which crossed Hollywood Boulevard. Only 13th Avenue was left open, and that's when the trouble started.
After 2009, the traffic just skyrocketed.
Residents say the neighborhood became a favorite shortcut for drivers who want to avoid busy US 1 and Young Circle.
It's created a traffic jam and a safety issue for the residents.
Cars speed and run stop signs.
People, they don't really slow down if they see a person or animal there.
In the past 4 years, the city of Hollywood has recorded 67 accidents on 13th Avenue. Residents have also been keeping track, taking pictures of wrecks at the busy intersections like Hollywood Boulevard, Tyler Street, and others in the neighborhood.
I was out here a couple years ago and somebody drove through the fence.
Neil Rosenblum's security cameras recorded that accident and others. His cameras also show another problem: big 18-wheelers and tanker trucks rolling through the neighborhood one after another.
When I moved here in 1999, it was a very quaint and quiet little neighborhood. We probably had less than 1,000 cars a day. And now we're exceeding 5,800 cars per day.
Residents say they've been complaining to the city for years with little effect.
Nothing's been done.
This day, frustrated residents met with Hollywood Commissioner Peter Hernandez and showed him the area that's driving them crazy.
The problem's not going to go away, and it's going to get worse.
Over the years, speed indicators and other fixes have been put in place to try to slow traffic down, but he says more needs to be done.
Let's see if we can actually find a solution that works for everybody and that it doesn't have the unintended consequences that closing all of the crossings along Hollywood Boulevard and leaving 13th Avenue by itself has cost.
The city of Hollywood says they have hired an engineer to look at options for traffic flow that might make this less tempting for drivers to cut through here. Residents say it is past time to stop the traffic that's plaguing their neighborhood. In Hollywood, Brandon Beyer, 7 News.
Now, the fascinating part is that Neil is actually an engineer himself, although he doesn't do traffic management, but he's a smart guy. And he met with the city and tried to get them to figure out what they could do to abate all this traffic coming through. When I got involved, one of the things I discovered was something I noticed as I drove around the area. I was curious what would happen when it was decided that the roads that were going from the major artery, which is called Hollywood Boulevard, were being closed off, and they left this one open. What happened was that all the navigation software, Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze, would preferentially route traffic through this residential street, this small street. And even though they put that circle, as you could see, to try to slow things down, all it did is it made it so that the cars that were still zipping along had a better opportunity to perhaps miss the turn and wind up in Neil's yard, because now they had to navigate that circle. So Hollywood, Florida has a lot of these traffic calming circles, but they don't particularly work because people just speed through them. And perhaps the people aren't as skilled as they need to be to navigate those circles. So it became a real danger, and people weren't stopping at the stop signs and so forth. When I discovered that the navigation software was actually causing the bulk of the problem, because a lot of the traffic going through there normally would have never gone through there. It's that they were being routed and directed through there. The thing I discovered is the same problem is happening all over the United States. And companies like Waze admit and have gotten into partnerships, as Google Maps has too, with different cities and counties. But in their agreements, they never concede that they're going to alter the flow of traffic to avoid smaller residential streets. All they basically say is they'll listen to the city if the city or county pays a certain fee to partner with them, but it doesn't mean that they're going to do anything. And Waze, for one, admitted that in a lot of the publications that I saw from them, that their main goal is to route the traffic as quickly as possible. So if the navigation software sees that there isn't a lot of traffic, the traffic is flowing on, in this case, that 13th Avenue, it's going to direct traffic through there and not take into consideration that that's a small residential neighborhood, that it has all these turns, and that's the crux of the problem. So as we get more and more build out of various metropolitan areas, what we have to understand is that some of the technology we have in place that directs the drivers may inadvertently be causing real problems, and the solutions require that the planning by the cities, counties, states actually involve more creative solutions than just simply saying, we'll close this road and it's fine, we'll put up a sign and the people will listen to it. No, that's not working. And this was a prime example. And the sad ending to the story is, after years of battling this and not being able to see any relief and being concerned for the safety of his family and just the noise from the traffic, he sold his home and left the city and went to a neighboring town. Real life story, true story. And we know that the navigation systems are actually contributing to this. So it will take planning from actual traffic engineers with new technology to abate and change the character of traffic. And we know that there's several. You've identified a couple of these. One is that on a larger scale, just to show the level of thinking, is that the diverging diamond interchange, some of the things that are done in Michigan, where they have what they call the Michigan left turns, which involve ultimately using U-turns. I think we can look at a couple of these and just see, because in most of our driving, we probably aren't accustomed to seeing any of these things. But as different states plan their growth, they probably need to be thinking outside the box. Do you agree?
Yeah, I've been following Diverging Diamonds for about a decade when it was like really new. And just a few days ago, I drove through a Diverging Diamond, and we'll show a clip that kind of explains it. But basically, on an intersection or an overpass, when you're getting off of a highway, you end up going on the opposite traffic's side, and they end up crossing over to your side. And it reduces the amount of lights, the amount of waiting, the amount of traffic accidents, the amount of gas waste, the amount of time wasted. It's super efficient when done correctly. Don't try and shove it into city streets, because especially not in a 500-year-old city, because I saw an example of that, and that just can create a disastrous catastrophe. But done properly on highway off ramps and on ramps, it could be super efficient. And just recently I drove through one and it was like a breeze. I just had a green light. I just drove right through and right on the intersection. It was like 2 seconds right onto the highway, sorry. And it was literally took 2 seconds. And it was like, wait, I should have waited in 3 different lights and had people beeping at me, etc. And instead I just flowed right through onto the highway, and it was just marvelous. So yeah, let's watch a video that kind of explains the Diverging Diamond intersection.
And although it's very different than the 13th Avenue situation we just looked at, it just speaks to the fact that if things are planned correctly within infrastructure for a city or a county, and ultimately for a state, a lot of the traffic, if it could be kept flowing on these major arteries versus directing them through the cities, it's actually a lot better. Here we go.
This is a diverging diamond interchange, and they're built to move cars efficiently and not kill you in the process. Here's how they work. As you approach the interchange, the road is split up into two separate one-way streets. Then, each side crisscrosses at an intersection, directing traffic to the opposite side. This temporary flip in traffic flow is the key to its efficiency and safety. Now that the traffic is on the opposite side, there's no longer any interference from oncoming traffic. This means that drivers entering the highway can freely turn left to merge onto the highway without waiting for a green arrow. Or worse, everyone judging for themselves if they have enough of a gap in oncoming traffic to turn. The same principle applies to traffic exiting the highway. If you need to turn left after exiting, you're already on the side of the road going left, making the turn quicker and easier. When you compare it to a traditional interchange, anyone turning left has to wait for both directions to stop before they can turn. Diverging diamonds have signs, painted lines, and even green arrows pointing you exactly in the direction you need to go. Just follow your lane, obey the traffic light, and drive. It might seem confusing, but it's a really simple concept actually, and as a result ends up being a lot safer.
Yeah, quite cool. Let's look. Did that look like what you navigated through?
Yeah, except that this one was the diverging diamond was ground level. Many times it's on the overpass, but it's basically the same idea. But yeah, it's just so efficient. And once you drive through it and you recognize that you've driven through it, you're like, we want more of these because yeah, it's just awesome. A similar situation to what we're seeing here is what you mentioned earlier, the Michigan U-turns or Michigan left turns, where basically everybody can only make a right, and then there are lots of dedicated U-turns, and because nobody has to make any left turns, it just gets rid of tremendous amount of accidents because that's the most dangerous turn, but also saves a lot of time because it's.
Be sure to watch our other clips and shorts and the entire episode 12 of The Yojo Show.